Shalom, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Family Bible Talk. Pretty soon we're going to be going out and speaking to people in the streets about the Word, right? Having like 20-minute discussions about different topics in the Bible. Tonight is actually the first night of the Feast of Tabernacles. We follow according to the Enoch calendar, which you can find or you can reference from the Book of Enoch. It starts tonight, the 22nd. What's that?
22nd.
And it ends when?
29th.
On the 29th. Okay, so if you look outside our window right here, you'll see it's even. So we're just now beginning our feast. We actually go all the way in on this Feast on the Tabernacles. We're not doing a lesson on the Tabernacles tonight, but you can read about Tabernacles in Nehemiah, the 8th chapter, and also Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. You can read about it first in Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, and then read more in depth about it in Nehemiah, the 8th chapter, where the Israelites actually camped outside of their homes, right? So they had homes, but they would camp in the courts of their homes. And right now, outside of our home, we have a couple of tents set up, which we think is fun. We sit around the fire and we camp in the backyard and things of that nature every year. Sometimes we actually go out and camp. So it's awesome. It's just a good time. And we're actually keeping a commandment and a feast day of the Most High. So today's lesson is an awesome lesson. It's about fear, because we try to, we want our lessons we want people to relate to our lessons. You know what I mean? Everybody has dealt with the spirit of fear in some form or fashion, right? But you cannot let fear dictate who you are, right? You can't do that, right? Like I said, 3 of my sons are boxers. Another one of my sons is a young businessman. And in either aspect of life, you cannot let fear stop you from becoming the best you can be. Okay, so let's go over these scriptures to show how our ancestors dealt with fear and how they overcame it. There's many scriptures, so we're just gonna choose some of those scriptures, right? So where you at?
1 Samuel 17 and 47.
If anybody has any thoughts to add, like, because the precepts are kind of, already written. If you want to add more precepts, you can, but it's already enough precepts there. So whatever thoughts you have on the side and examples, bring that up too. Go ahead.
1 Samuel 17 and 47.
Uh-huh.
And all this assembly shall know that the Lord saveth not with the sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands.
So it says the battle is the Most High's. And, me being the type of guy that I am, right, and the way that I was raised, I had to do a lot of maturing. You know what I mean? I had to do a lot of maturing because I tend to think that I'm going to change things by the work of my hands. You know what I mean? I'm going to change this thing by something that I'm going to do. And then when I do this thing, right, and it doesn't work, then I start losing faith in myself. When really, it's up to the Most High how he wants to handle things. And what I'm learning now as an older man is that the best thing to do, if you're having troubles on your job, troubles with your health, troubles with your marriage, troubles with your children, go and pray. Pray to the Most High. And you'll see what? Read that again. The battle is what?
For the battle is the Lord's.
The battle is the Most High's. We live in this imaginary world where we feel like we're going to save each other by our own hands. Our money's going to save us. Our muscles are going to save us. Our guns and weapons are going to save us. No, man, the Most High already won the battle. So we need to get out of our heads and go to the Most High and be like, Father, help me. Right? Go ahead.
And he will give you into our hands.
That's right. So is that it on that?
Yeah.
So give me the next scripture. Because that's the mentality that we have to have through this battle, this spiritual battle. All right? What's the next one? I want you to read the commentary that goes with it. Because when I was putting these scriptures together, I had a certain spirit in mind. I was thinking about things that I'm going through, and the scriptures were coming. So I don't want you to feel like the class is all over the place, because it actually comes together pretty well. All right? So for those people who are thinking that you're at your wit's end, and life is just closing in, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, you got to get to that point where you show the Most High that you trust him. You have to. Because if you get to that, if you're at this place where you're like, oh, I don't know what to do, I just want to give up, it's actually disrespectful to the Most High. Because what you're saying is, I don't believe. I'm an atheist and I don't even realize it. Why? Because I don't believe that the Most High can save me in the midst of my trouble. Right here, we read in what was that, Samuel, right? The Most High, he already won the battle. What you got?
I got a precept on that as well.
Go ahead. You want me to read it?
Come.
What is it?
2 Kings 6 and 13.
2 Kings 6 and 13. And he said, go and spy where he is, that I may send and fetch him. And it was told him, saying, behold, he is in Dothan. Keep reading.
Come.
Verse 14. Therefore send thee hither the horses and the chariots and a great host. And they came by the night and compassed the city about. And when the servant of the man of God was risen early and gone forth, behold, an host compassed the city both with horses and chariots.
So,
Mhm.
so just to give a quick little summary of what's going on in the situation, you have Elisha, right, which is the pupil or the student of Elijah, right?
Mhm.
When you read that story, even that itself shows a lot of dedication, right? The processes that these men went through to have a certain character, right? But Elisha, right, now he's dealing with one of his students, one of his disciples, right? They're being chased by some people, and the people, huge armies, got the whole area surrounded.
Right.
So in a normal, lifestyle, right?
Right.
People today, if you see your whole house, even on the news, you see a guy who domestic violence case or something crazy like that, and the whole house is surrounded by police. To them, to any normal person, it would look like, hey man, this is a done deal. This dude is out of there. It is over. But if you keep reading, let's check out Elijah's composure. So, what the young man's composure is like, oh man, dude, sir, we're surrounded. It's over. Like, what are we gonna do? Oh no.
So he's carnal.
Yeah.
So he's sitting there like, so it's kind of like if me and you were, we were sitting there and we're surrounded by these goons that's trying to jump us. And I'm like, oh man, what are we going to do? We about to get our heads kicked in.
Yeah.
And you're at peace right now. I'm freaking out, but you're like, we got this, right? That's what you're saying.
Definitely.
Okay, so 16. No, I'll go back to 15. It says, and when the servant of the man of the Most High was risen up and gone forth, behold, a host compassed the city, both with horses and chariots. And his servant said unto him, alas, my master, how shall we do?
Go ahead.
And he answered, fear not, right? For they that be with us is more than they that be with them.
So this is a confidence, not that he had in himself, right? Not that he had in what he's seeing around him, just him, his boy, and the people around him. He had the confidence. His whole confidence was in the Most High,
Mm-hmm.
which you also read in the scripture read before this in Samuel.
Mm-hmm.
The confidence they had was the audacity they had in just the power of the Most High.
Mhm.
They could care less what they could visually see right in front of them, right?
Nice.
That was my point on that.
You want me to read this verse 17?
If you have one to.
And Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray thee open his eyes that he may see.
And that's a great prayer, and I wish we could all, at the end of the day, right, on a daily basis, see, how many angels the Most High surrounds us with,
That's
protects
tight.
us with.
That's
right?
tight.
If we could see how many times lives have been saved, right?
Come. Mm-hmm. And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha.
So, us having that same confidence in the Most High, us at any moment can have that same legion of angels surrounding us, right? Protecting us from whatever situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what's the next scripture? Who was going to?
Where you at? That's a powerful scripture, man. Because you know how they make the movies nowadays, right? You got all these movies, right, that they make, right? Just imagine that movie. Elijah's sitting there with his servant. His servant is shaking in his boots. Elijah's just chilling with his hands crossed like, we good. And then he prays to the Most High like, Abba, go on and show this cat what we're working with. He looks back and the Most High opens the fourth and it's an army standing behind him. Brother, now I see why the Most High be pissed at the fearful. Because, fool, I got an army standing behind you. And you scared of what's going to happen with your bills? You scared what's going to happen in your marriage? You're scared what's going to happen in these tough times in your life? When the Most High, if you believe, will have an army standing behind you. willing to fight for you and ready. What's the scripture you got next?
Matthew 10 and 28.
Let's get it.
And fear not them which can kill the body.
That's what we're going into, right? That spirit of fear. Don't fear somebody who can just kill your body. Because the body, when people die, when our loved ones die, that's what you would call the first death. The only death we need to fear is the second death, which is eternal judgment. We need to make sure that we're good for that, right? Go ahead.
But are not able to kill the soul,
Mhm.
but rather fear him which is able to destroy both the soul and body in hell.
Check that out. And some people don't believe in hell. The Most High is able to destroy the soul and the body. So what we doing tripping on and being fearful at people, humans, other people with arms and legs and bleed blood just like you. Where you at?
Verse 33.
Uh-huh.
But whosoever shall deny me before men,
Uh-huh.
him will I also deny before my Father which is in heaven.
So out of fear, a lot of people end up selling out. We're going to read about how this happened in history, right? But out of fear, people a lot of times won't serve the Most High to the fullest. Well, I'm afraid to leave the Christian church. I'm afraid to leave this old doctrine, right? I'm afraid to make a move. I'm afraid to even, like the smaller things, to start my own business. They just be stuck and frozen in the spirit of fear because they're afraid of the unknown. Right? Go ahead.
Think not that I am come to send peace on earth.
Go back and read that part again, that top part.
But whosoever shall deny me before men,
Uh-huh.
him will I also deny before my Father which is in heaven.
Go up before that.
Fear not them which can kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul,
Mhm.
but rather fear him which is able to destroy the spirit and the body in hell.
Go ahead.
But whosoever shall deny me before men, him will I also deny before my Father which is in heaven.
Okay, keep going. Read.
Think not that I come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword.
Mm-hmm.
For I am come to set a man at variance against. For I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law.
So yeah, I was talking to my little brother today, right? And again, out of the spirit of fear, people stick to the doctrines that they deal with. I told my brother, I said, listen, we should be celebrating the same feast days. He's in another Israelite group. I said, when we go into the book of Enoch, it tells you that the first day of the year is the day after the first time of the year that is, or the springtime when it's equal part day, equal part night. So 12 parts daylight, 12 parts night, right? And then we said that happens on what day every year?
Shabbat.
So you got other Israelite groups that say what? The earth has helped the people. When we look at archaeology and how certain records were preserved in like the Qumran caves and things like that, you know, and they say, yeah, they agree that, you know, the earth helped the people, right? But what greater way can we testify that the earth has helped us when every year we can look at the earth and see that what? That first day of the year is always on a Shabbat. Correct? The first day of the year. I don't want to go into that lesson, but that's crazy. That should be enough for us to say, man, the Most High is working here. How is it that when we look up, when the earth is equal part day, equal part night, the next day is always on the Sabbath? If every Israelite looked at that logically, we would all count our feast days based on that first day, and we would all celebrate the Most High's feast days at the same time. All Israelites in the earth would be celebrating the Feast of Tabernacle right now together. You know? Read on.
Verse 34, 35. For I am come to set a man at variance against his father.
So you will have family members just at odds with each other. Because people are afraid of leaving. Like they say, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. You know? Your people, right? Your family. You love your family to death, but it's hard for them to leave off from those Native American traditions, right? Why? Because that's all they know. Fear keeps them in line. Fear of that pastor, fear of those family members, fear of that doctrine and the repercussions that doctrine teaches will befall you. But we don't need to fear them. We need to fear what's in this book, right? Read.
And the daughter against her mother.
Go ahead.
And the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law.
And believe me, we've seen that. Go ahead.
And a man's foe shall be of his own household.
Why? Because Christ is coming to bring the truth in an earth that's all about lies. And people love lies. And when are you most fearful? It says Jacob was left what?
Alone.
Jacob was left alone, right? When you're alone, that's when the spirit of fear hits you the hardest a lot of times. Not if you know for some people. And so what does Satan try to do? He tries to isolate and separate and divide people. Go ahead.
He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me.
So if your father is dealing with a doctrine that's not in line with the Most High, and you say, I'm going to follow this doctrine because my father follows this doctrine, what about your heavenly father? Do you love your worldly parents more than you love the Most High? You got to go back and read about Abraham and Terah in the book of Jasher, how much honor that Abraham had for his father. Abraham's father was, he made idols for a living, correct? And the way that Abraham honored his father was by taking and smashing every idol that man made to bring back the respect to his father's house for the Most High. And then he took the bat that he broke all those idols with and put it in the hand of the biggest idol that Abraham had made, and told Abraham, I didn't do it. Your idol did it. The big one smashed all the little ones. Right? And this is, the truth is going to divide people because people really believe in their old ways and customs and traditions. Right? Read on.
And he that taketh not his cross and followeth after me is not worthy of me.
But we have to be willing to serve the Most High by any means necessary, no matter what it means. What it's going to cost you. Go ahead.
He that findeth his life shall lose it.
And that's what a lot of people do, right? They're looking for comfortability. They're looking to make sure that they're good and they're cushy. They're trying to find the most easiest way to live. But here's the thing. Being an Israelite is never going to be easy. Being a follower of the Most High is always going to come with ups and downs and battles and stripes. Because as Hebrew Israelites, we are under Jacob's trouble until Christ come back to relieve us from Jacob's trouble. So those are the only truly successful people. If you're successful and you're not going through Jacob's trouble, which you can find in Jeremiah 30, you're not a success. You ain't a success until you're a success in distress. Go ahead.
And he that loseth his life for my sake shall find it.
So if you're trying to, better your situation by alleviating yourself from the Most High, good luck with that. Read on.
And here's a commentary.
Go ahead.
This subtle captivity wherein is the most dangerous. It's most deceiving. But in this captivity we were able to sift through lies we've been taught and find the truth.
This is the truth, right? The captivity that we're in, right, here in America, South America, that was an obvious captivity where, people are getting whipped, people are getting beaten and hung, and, putting yokes around their necks. People are getting their feet chopped off. So that was, to me, I'm not going to say that was an easier captivity, right? But I will say that this captivity is more deceptive. I would say that during the captivity that we're in slavery, the actual physical bondage that we're in, at least we turn to the Most High. In this bondage that we're in, it's so subtle that it's hard to come to the Most High for some people. Because you feel like everyone's being blessed. You got the most people that are totally against the Bible flourishing and living off the fruit of the land right now. The most demonic people in the world are some of the most richest, steadfast people in the world who live life to the fullest. So why listen to a righteous person? Why follow someone who's serving the Most High when the people that don't serve the Most High are doing just fine? Well, because we are investors and we're getting in on serving the Most High on the ground floor. Go ahead.
Hosea 1:7-10.
Uh-huh.
But I will have mercy upon the house of Judah, and I will save them by the Lord their God. And I will not save them by bow, nor by sword, nor by battle.
There we go again. I'm not going to save them by the bow or by the sword. The way that we're going to get saved is by our connection in Christ. You got it on the phone? Right? So I got to make a phone call real quick. We're going to pause that right quick. And we'll be right back in a half a second. All right, so we're going to pick back up where we left off. Go ahead, read that.
Hosea 1:7. But I will have mercy upon the house of Judah, and will save them by the Lord their God, and will not save them by bow, nor by sword, nor by battle, by horses, nor by horsemen.
And so this is the mind that we got to have, right? These brothers, we're going to go into a story in 2nd Maccabees about that mentality of no matter what happens, the Most High got me. I don't got to have a dollar to my name. I don't have to have a weapon. I don't have to have a stick, a stave, a knife. The Most High is going to deliver me. This family done been through hell, and it doesn't matter because we're a living testimony that regardless, the Most High got your back. No matter who you are, if you truly believe in the Most High, He going to deliver you. Go ahead.
Verse 8. Now when she had weaned Lorma, she conceived and bare a son. Then said Ahiah, call his name Laomai, for ye are not my people, and I will be your God. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, there shall be said unto them, ye are the sons of the living God.
So this is where the confusion come in, right? Because in this place we were taught Christianity. In this place we were taught so many different lies. We got Jesus Christ. We got Yahweh. We got so many different, we got Allah, right? Buddha, Krishna. We got so many different ways to serve a supreme being. It's confusion in this place. In this world. Well, really it's like that in the entire world. But here where we were brought as Hebrew Israelites to serve captivity, right here in this same place is where we found the truth. Go ahead.
Some commentary. We have the truth in captivity to deliver us from captivity. Yet our people choose other so-called means of success.
So even though we're in captivity, the Most High and the scriptures is so cold because we weren't taught the truth. We were taught modern Christianity. You know what I mean? Yet and still, even like Dawiyad and myself, were able to bring stuff out of the Bible that we weren't even taught. Nobody gave this information to us. The Most High would just reveal it to us. The Most High said that He would do nothing but reveal His secrets unto His servants, the prophet. Brothers from ISUPK back in the days, they came with the 12 tribes breakdown. GOCC, all the stuff that they're bringing to the table. You know what I mean? All this information coming out, and we in the midst of our captivity. That's proof enough to say that we don't have to have fear that the Most High got our back. Because even against the odds, He still worked with us. Right? But there are people in the earth now, like how we read earlier, I believe that was Matthew, where it said if you save your life, you will lose your life. Right here in the commentary, it came and it says that there are people that choose other means of success other than the ones that we find in the Bible, out of fear. It's maybe not totally their fault, but they choose to do what? To go for other means of success because they see it's a quicker way of making money or a quicker way of taking care of your family, as opposed to what? Doing things the right way in Christ. You know? Go ahead.
Isaiah 28:11.
Uh-huh.
For with stammering lips and another tongue will He speak to this people.
And King James knew that. That's why he had the Bible translated into English. Because he knew that we would come here into America and be put in a situation where we would have to speak the language of our oppressors. Go ahead.
Verse 12. To whom He said, this is the rest wherewith ye may cause the weary to rest.
Go ahead.
And this is the refreshing, yet they would not hear.
Mm-hmm.
But the word of the Lord was unto them precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line.
And like we spoke, we went to Enoch and we said, through the book of Enoch, we realized that the first day of the year is the day after the earth is equal part day, equal part night. You go through the precepts and you find out that the earth is actually working to show us the truth. The earth itself is showing us the truth. So when you go through the precepts, if you deal with the precepts, that's a way that you can have the entire nation of Israel, and let alone the entire nation of Israel, right? The entire earth in unity serving the Most High. Right? But through the spirit of fear, we stick to the things that we're accustomed to, being afraid of the unknown. Go ahead.
But the word of the Lord, line upon line, here a little and there a little.
Go ahead.
That they might go and fall backward and be broken and snared and taken.
Now, some people, they fall off because there's a spirit to studying the scriptures, right? It has to be in the right spirit. You have to, when you learn of the Most High, you want to learn of the Most High to better your life, to better your family, not to be the know-it-all who knows more than everybody else. The debater who wants to just get into scriptural arguments with people. So those people, when they study, they fall over backwards. Like Solomon said, only reason he wanted riches, he didn't want riches. Only reason he wanted knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and he was given the riches and everything else that went with it, was because he wanted anything that the Most High would bless him with for the purpose of serving the Most High. Right?
Come.
Go ahead.
Verse 14, wherefore, hear the word of the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
ye scornful men, that rule this people which is in Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
Because ye have said, we have made a covenant with death, and with hell are we at agreement.
You see that? So there are people in the earth that fear circumstances, but they don't fear the Most High. We made a covenant with death. Like you look at all these YouTube videos on people that, so-called sold their soul to the devil. I don't know if these people did that or not. So, sign their name in blood. That's not my business. But you see the videos. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I would like to think that Satan is a little bit more subtle than that. A little less obvious, a little less outright. But if people are doing that, people are doing it in even smaller ways. Dividing families, destroying relationships, friendships, and things of that nature. Stepping on your fellow man to receive a corporate position and things of that nature. They said that they made a pact with the devil and a covenant with death. They're so afraid of not being successful that they're willing to side with Satan for a moment. I will sacrifice, my eternal soul to eat the spoils with the devil for a day. So you fear what will happen to you in life, but you don't fear the Most High. You got to be stupid. Man, we fear the Most High.
Come.
Read.
Because ye have said, we have made a covenant with death, and with hell we are at agreement.
Mm-hmm.
When the overflowing scourge shall pass through, it shall not come unto us. For we have made lies our refuge.
Lies are refuge, and that's how people survive. They make these lies, right? What says their conscience is seared with a hot iron. And what happens is, in order for me to do something demonic, I have to be at peace with what I'm about to do. So I have to convince myself that me sleeping with my brother's wife, is a good thing. I've done some wicked stuff in my life, but I had to convince myself that it was okay. And I think it's the same way with everybody in the earth, right? You convince yourself that the evil that you're about to do makes sense, and then you do it. So that way your mind can process a certain type of this action, and be able to do it. Because we're created to be righteous people. So you have to convince your own self that what you're doing is not so bad. But these people said, I'm willing to make a covenant with death, and I'm fortified in my lies. My lies will protect me when the Most High and Christ come to collect. That's the way they feel, yo. Fearing what the world's going to do, fearing not being a success, fearing not having no status symbols, but don't got no fear for the Most High. What the? You see what I'm saying? That's crazy, bro. Read.
And under falsehood have we hid ourselves.
Check. Under what have we hid ourselves?
Under falsehood.
Falsehood is your own ideology, philosophy, right? Meaning you can't find it in the scripture what you're doing, right? But I'm going to do it anyway. Read.
Commentary.
Go ahead.
We are supposed to be strong against adversity, but getting that way takes time and experience.
So this is for you all out there that are like going through some things. The story of Peter is a very, very strong story because Peter made a few mistakes, right? And it took him a minute. Peter was the rock of the church. Matter of fact, let's just read it. Go ahead. Where you at?
Peter was chosen to lead, but needed to go through some things to fill that position.
Exactly. Right? Peter was chosen to be a great man. He was chosen to be the head of the church. But he wasn't ready at the time he was given that position. He had to go through certain things in life to get him to that point. Go ahead.
Matthew 26:31.
Uh-huh.
Then said Yeshua unto them,
Go ahead.
all ye shall be offended because of me this night.
Go ahead.
For it is written, I will smite the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock shall be scattered abroad.
So here it is. Christ is sitting there and he's like telling the disciples, look, this thing's about to go down. They're going to take me. Go ahead.
But after I am risen again, I will go before you unto Galilee.
Go ahead.
Peter answered and said unto him, though all men shall be offended because of thee, yet will I never be offended.
Now there's a thing called overconfidence. You got overconfidence and you got fear. The Most High said a false balance is a what?
Abomination.
So I try not to be overconfident because I don't know what the Most High is going to do. Right? I cannot dictate how a thing is going to turn out. All I can do is do the work. All I can do is put the effort in. Right? At the end of the day, the Most High is going to decide how certain things play out. But on the flip side, I cannot operate in fear either. But right here, Peter's overconfident. Like, man, all these other brothers might trip, but me, I got you. Go ahead.
Though all men shall be offended because of thee, yet will I never be offended.
So all Peter needed to do instead of making that speech before Christ was pray that he don't enter into temptation. Go ahead.
Yeshua said unto him, verily I say unto thee, that this night before the cock crow, thou shalt deny me thrice.
Dealing with the spirit of fear. Go ahead.
Peter said unto him, though I should die with thee, yet I will not deny thee.
Check that out.
Likewise also said all the disciples.
Wow. Go ahead.
Matthew 16 and 17.
Uh-huh.
And Yeshua answered and said unto him,
Mm-hmm.
blessed art thou, Simon Barjona,
Uh-huh.
for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven.
Go ahead.
Verse 18, and I say also unto thee, that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it.
He said upon Peter he would build his church, and the gates of hell won't even be able to prevail against him. Right? Read.
Verse 19, and I will give unto thee the keys of the kingdom of heaven.
Wow. The truth. Go ahead.
And whatsoever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven.
And that's why we were talking about earlier, right? How when we said, listen, that day when the earth is equal part day, equal part night, the very next day is the first day of the year, right? What's bound on earth is bound in heaven, right? So when the earth is showing you itself when that first day of the year is, and you keep those feast days, the angels are also keeping the feast days at the same time in heaven. And what's bound on earth is bound in heaven. And Peter did not follow no lunar calendar. He didn't follow no Jewish calendar. Read.
And whatsoever thou shalt loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven.
Go ahead.
Then charged he his disciples that they should tell no man that he is Yeshua the Christ. From that time forth, Yeshua began to shew unto his disciples how that he must go unto Jerusalem and suffer many things of the elders, chief priests, and scribes, and be killed and raised again the third day. Then Peter took him and began to rebuke him, saying, be it far from thee, Lord, this shall not be unto thee. But he turned and said unto Peter, get thee behind me, Satan.
Now, was he calling Peter Satan? Kinda. But he was talking to that spirit. He was like, Peter, listen, back up, because you're dealing with an overconfident spirit. There's certain things that I'm going to have to go through in this process. And when you understand that there's certain things that we're going to have to go through, like say the UN soldiers kicked the door. I was talking to Uriah this morning about that. I was like, man, we might give them a hug when they walk through, because that's going to be confirmation that we was telling the truth the whole time. Wow, where you been at? Shoot, we've been waiting on you. Let's go to war. Right? Read.
For thou art an offense unto me. For thou savorest not the things that be of Ahiah, but those that be of men.
And I get that way sometimes. I get that. Sometimes I don't want to go through the things that are going to make me stronger. You know, I had to go through things to make me stronger. A lot of us are raised in single parent households where we don't get the benefit of learning masculinity from our fathers. I tell you in the book of Deuteronomy 28 that the father would leave his children. So a lot of us were raised as men only knowing the feminine side. I had to go through, some of us have to go through tough times to understand how to endure when things really get bad. A lot of stuff that you guys are going through right now, you understand what I'm saying, is only in preparation for the crazy things, and the even crazier things are going to happen in the future. Go ahead. Where you at?
John 18 and 12. Then the band and the captain of officers of the Jews took Yeshua and bound him.
So now here it come. You know, Peter was like, nah, man, I'll die with you. Now here come the soldiers, right? Go ahead.
And led away to Annas first, for he was the father-in-law to Cepheus, which was the high priest that same year. Now Cepheus was he, which gave counsel to the Jews that it was expedient that one man should die for the people. And Simon Peter followed Yeshua, and so did another disciple. That the disciple was known unto the high priest, and went in with Yeshua into the palace of the high priest. But Peter stood at the door without.
Check that out. There was another disciple that went in like a soldier. He went in, but Peter found a way to kind of dip off to the side. Through what? Fear. Now, can you blame him? The Roman Empire was the most what's that word? Seductive? Hey, email us. Tell us what that word is. Sadistic. Thank you. I knew it was like distic in there. Right? They were crazy. They had this game, bruh, where they would bury people in the dirt to their necks, and they had something that would look like a lawnmower and would cut people's head off like a lawnmower. And the crowd would go crazy, like LeBron just cocked it back and dunked it when you see that head just split clean off and just fly in the sky. So of course Peter was like, man, when it really hit the fan, he was like, my man, let me, you know what I'm saying? Let me move around a little bit. Because the heat was on at that time. Go ahead.
Then went out that other disciple, which was known unto the high priest, and spake unto her that kept the door, and brought in Peter. Then said the damsel that kept the door unto Peter, art thou also one of these man's disciples?
So wait a minute. You look familiar. You're Peter. You're the one that used to hang out with this guy that we about to, crucify, right? Ain't that you? What'd he say?
He said, I am not.
No. What did that dude say in Delivery Man? Yo no soy David Wozniak. Right? Yo no soy David Wozniak. He was like, trying to avoid any type of connection to Christ at that time. You know what I mean? He was like, no, that is not me. Even though in his heart, in the beginning, he believed that he would never deny Christ. And that's why prayer is so important. We can't be overconfident every day. If you want to be confident, you pray for confidence. Right? You pray the Most High deliver you through each battle that you go through. Go ahead.
Verse 18. And the servants and officers stood there, who made a fire of coals, for it was cold, and they warmed themselves. And Peter stood with them and warmed himself. The high priest then asked Yeshua of his disciples, and of his doctrine. Yeshua answered him, and I spake openly to the world. I never taught in the synagogue and in the temple, whither the Jews always resort.
Now, what are we talking about? Those other people that had made a covenant with death to protect us. What's up with that, Cameron, right quick? You good? They said our lives will protect us. Right? Right here, Yeshua is standing in the midst of death. He's standing in the face of death. And proceeding as the Father would have him to. Go ahead.
And in secret I have said nothing. Why askest?
He said, I ain't done nothing in secret. Go ahead.
Why askest thou me?
Go ahead. Why what?
Why askest thou me? Ask them which heard me.
He said, why are you asking me? I did the work. If you want to know what I did, just look to the people around you. How bold was Christ, right? Did he have any fear? Yes, he did. But he did not let it stop him. When he was dealing with the spirit of fear, he went and prayed before the Most High and said, if there's any way that this cup can pass, please let it pass. Nevertheless, if it be your will, that's what I'm finna do. But he didn't let the fear stop him. Right? Go ahead.
Why askest thou me? Ask them which heard me.
Uh-huh.
What have I said unto them?
Mhm.
Behold, they know what I said.
Mhm.
And when he had thus spoken, one of the officers which stood by struck Yeshua with the palm of his hands.
So why did he strike him? Why did he strike? He struck him because obviously Christ was being sarcastic and what some would call disrespectful to him. Like, listen, man, he was showing in their face, I'm not afraid of you. I'm afraid of the Most High, my Father. I fear him. I don't fear you. So the dude cocked back and hit Christ in the face. Go ahead.
Saying, answerest thou the high priest so?
Yep.
Yeshua answered him.
And this high priest was a what? An Israelite. Go ahead.
I have spoken evil.
Mm-hmm.
Bear witness of the evil. If well, why smitest thou
He
me?
said, if I'm telling a lie, that's one thing. But if I'm telling the truth, what you hit me for? Go ahead.
Now Annas had sent him bound unto Cephas the high priest.
Mm-hmm.
And Simon Peter stood and warmed himself. They said, therefore, unto him, Art not thou one of his disciples? And he denied it, and said, I am not.
Jeez.
Verse 26, one of the servants of the high priest, being his kinsman, whose ear Peter cut off, said, Do not I see thee in the garden with him?
They go the third time. Go ahead.
Peter then denied again, and immediately the cock crew.
And this was the guy that he cut his ear off. I think it was you, bro, because I would recognize the guy who cut my ear off. You know what I mean? Because you kind of remember those things. Nope, that wasn't me. And immediately the what?
And immediately the cock crew.
Read on. What's the next one? You get to the next one. John.
Luke 22 and 61, 62.
Uh-huh.
And the Lord turned and looked upon Peter. And Peter remembered the word of the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
and how he had said unto him,
Check that out.
Before the cock crow, thou shalt deny me thrice. And Peter went out and wept bitterly.
Now, what is that weeping? Some people would do evil stuff to people and they don't cry. You understand what I'm saying? That weeping was remorse. That weeping was righteousness. When he looked at Christ and seen him being taken away, and he remembered saying that he would never deny him, it pricked his heart. And his consciousness, right? His conscience kicked in and he began to cry. That's how you know someone righteous. When they truly on the inside feel the evils that they done did. Peter was there at that moment. Go ahead.
This is St. John chapter 21, verse 1.
Uh-huh.
After these things, Yeshua shewed himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias.
So when it says after these things, okay, the chief priests had taken Christ and he had been crucified. Now he's been resurrected. And he's going to show himself unto the disciples here. Go ahead.
On this wise, shewed himself, he himself.
Mm-hmm.
Simon Peter saith unto him, I go a fishing. And they said unto him, We also go with thee. They went forth and entered into a ship immediately, and that night they caught nothing.
They didn't catch nothing. And Peter was a master fisherman. But anyway, when Christ came, he said, I think it said that they caught so much fish, it was ridiculous, right? Go ahead.
Verse 14.
Uh-huh.
This is now the third time that Yeshua shewed himself to his disciples.
So I'm just like skipping through John the 21st chapter. All right. So now this is the third time that he showed himself to the disciples after he had died and been resurrected. Go ahead.
After that, he was risen from the dead. So when they dined, Yeshua said to Simon Peter, Simon,
And they died because they caught fish. Go ahead.
Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me more than these?
So now this is the point that I'm bringing out. Because we had this man that denied Christ. But yet he was still made the rock of the church. That's a good thing to hear because there are some of us that's not where we need to be. And we can see now that, Peter wasn't where he needed to be, but he was still chosen by Christ to do great things. Christ knew that if Peter just remained diligent, that eventually he would be where he needed to be mentally and spiritually to do the great things that he would do. So when he came back upon his resurrection, he said, Peter, you love me? Go ahead.
He saith unto him, he saith unto him, Yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee.
Mm-hmm.
He saith unto him, feed my lambs.
Feed my what?
Feed my lambs.
The lamb is talking about the children of Israel and all those who believe, but the children of Israel and whoever, you know, would be joined unto the children of Israel, you would treat them righteously. Go ahead.
He saith to him again the second time, Simon, son of Jonas,
Mm-hmm.
lovest thou me? He saith unto him, yeah, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. He saith unto him, feed my sheep.
Feed my sheep. Do the work. Right? Go ahead.
He saith unto him the third time,
Mm-hmm.
Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me?
Mm-hmm.
Peter was grieved because he said unto him the third time,
The number of understanding. Go ahead.
lovest thou me?
Go ahead.
And he said unto him, Lord, thou knowest all things. Thou knowest that I love thee.
Mm-hmm.
Yeshua saith unto him, feed my sheep.
Now, feeding the sheep is not always going to be fun. Kids don't always want to eat vegetables. And the way we've been eating vegetables lately has been raw. Uncooked, raw vegetables. Kids want to eat chicken nuggets and, you know what I mean, things of that nature, right? But when you truly feed and nourish your children, sometimes you have to give them things that they don't necessarily want, which is correction. And then sometimes you do give them the things that they want. They might get a little ice cream, which is a compliment, which is a pat on the back from you know. You understand what I'm saying? It's balance. Go ahead.
Verse 18, verily, verily, I say unto thee,
Uh-huh.
when thou wast young, thou girdest thyself, and walkest whither thou wouldest.
Mm-hmm.
But when thou shalt be old, thou shalt stretch forth thy hands, and another shall gird thee, and carry thee whither thou wouldest not.
He said when you were young, you was a gangster, walking around with a knife in your pocket, looking to cut people's ear off. But when you get old, you're going to be wiser. And you're going to be a leader of the people. And you're going to have to feed those people. Go ahead.
Verse
With
19.
knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Salah. Go ahead.
Verse 19.
Uh-huh.
This spake he, signifying by what death he should glorify the Most High.
So it's showing you that what? Peter would live out the rest of his life serving the Most High. No longer, never again denying Christ. Go ahead.
And when he had spoken this, he saith unto him, follow me.
Yeah.
Commentary.
Mm-hmm.
Peter lived the rest of his life loyal to Christ.
That's right. Go ahead.
We have to be trained to stand fearless in the face of death.
So, you know, standing fearless in the face of death is not something that just comes organically. I think people can evolve. When you look at people in third world countries, I think that those people have become accustomed to facing death. You know what I mean? Because they see so much of it. But those of us who can go buy a flat screen TV for less than $200, when things hit the fan for us, we're going to be tremendously afraid. Because everything is given to us so easy that we don't work hard for anything anymore. We got a fire sitting outside right now around our camp set up. You know what I'm saying? And most people can't start a fire without lighter fluid. You understand what I'm saying? You want to talk about fear. I'm not going to say Esau, but when the hierarchy of this earth decides to take away all the amenities, the internet, the light, electricity from us and things of that nature, people are going to be so in fear, they're going to be willing to do anything to survive. And we've seen it when we witnessed Hurricane Ike in Houston, right? We witnessed how cutthroat people began to become. You know what I mean? We saw it to some degree, right? When people are in chaos. So now is the time when we need to learn how to deal with the spirit of fear. Now is the time we need to prepare our minds of how are we going to be when things really get crazy. Let's read.
2 Maccabees chapter 15 verse 1.
And we're just going to read this chapter, and that'll be it on this lesson. And the lesson is called, Do Not Let Fear Affect You. Go ahead.
But Nicanor, hearing that Judas and his company were in the strong places about Samaria, resolved without any danger to set upon them on the Sabbath day. Nevertheless, the Jews that were compelled to go with him said, "Oh, destroy not so cruelly and barbarously."
Now, the Jews that were compelled to go with him was a bunch of suckers. Am I right? These were the people that said, we have made a covenant with what?
Death.
They scared. So what are they doing? Oh, man, the Romans they're gonna win anyway. You know, I'd rather get down with the Romans than die. But they still had somewhat of an Israelite nature to say, well, don't attack them on the Sabbath day. Right? but they still had it in them to sell out to protect their own self. Like the scripture we went earlier, where it says, "He that findeth his life shall what? Lose it." Check that out. Go ahead.
But give honor to that day, which he that seeth all things hath honored with holiness above all other days. Then the most ungracious wretch demanded, if there were a mighty one in heaven, that he commanded the Sabbath day to be kept.
So this Roman turned around and said, "Is there a God that commands this Sabbath day to be kept?" Go ahead.
And when they said, there is in heaven a living Lord.
They said these Jews that were suckers and sellouts, they still at least had some dignity. They said, yeah, there is a living God that commands us to keep the Sabbath. Go ahead.
And mighty, who commanded the seventh day to be kept. Then said the other, and I also am mighty upon the earth, and I command to take arms and to do the king's business.
So now he said, listen, yeah, well, I'm powerful too. Can you imagine that? Go ahead.
Yet he obtained not to have his wicked one, yet he obtained not to have his wicked will done. So Nicanor, in exceeding pride and haughtiness, determined to set up a public monument of his victory over Judas and them that were with him. But Maccabeus had ever sure confidence that the Most High would help him.
Yeah.
Wherefore he exhorted his people not to fear the coming of the heathen against them, but to remember the help which in former times they had received from heaven.
Hold on. Can you hear me, Anna? Can you hear me? I don't know what's going on there. Go ahead, read.
But Maccabeus, having ever sure confidence that the Most High would help him, wherefore he exhorted his people not to fear the coming of the heathen against them, but to remember the help which in former times they had received from heaven, and now to expect the victory and aid which should come unto them from the Almighty. And so comforting them out of the law and prophets, and withal putting them in the mind of the battles that they won before.
So that's a key way. There they go. They're back on that. That's a key way to survive these things. It says, remember the days of old, right? So what he was doing, he was comforting the people like, okay, these Romans are going to come and they're going to try to attack us at our weak point on the Shabbat. But guess what? Let's go back in history and remember when the Most High delivered us greatly, when he fought for us. Like in Exodus, the 14th chapter, when Moses told the people, the Most High himself is going to fight for us. Right? Go ahead.
And he made them more cheerful. And when he had stirred them up, stirred up their minds, he gave them their charge, shewing them therewithal the falsehood of the heathen.
Check that out.
And the breach of the oaths.
Go ahead.
Thus he armed everyone, one of them.
How did he arm them?
Not so much with the defensive shields
He didn't arm them with guns. Go ahead.
and spears, as with comfortable and good words.
So he armed them with strength in the spirit. Go ahead.
And beside that, he told them a dream worthy to be believed, as if it had been so indeed, which did not a little rejoice them. Ephesians 6:12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world.
So with that, you can just leave off of that and go back to Maccabees, because the reason why I wanted to put that scripture in there, because we get so afraid of the physical, carnal things that we have to face that we forget that this battle is spiritual. And that if we just lock into the Most High, he's got our back. You be fearing somebody that, like I said, got arms and legs and bleed blood just like you, fearing whatever position they can put you in life, when the Most High clearly got your back. Like we talked about in Kings with Elijah, right? Go ahead.
2 Maccabees chapter 15, verse 12. And this was his vision, that Ananias, who had been high priest, a virtuous and good man, reverent in conversation, gentle in condition, well spoken also, exercised from a child in all points of virtue.
Check that out. This is where you get an edge, like with honor downstairs. People who are raised up in the truth their whole life, You guys, you have to thank the Most High for that. Because guess what? That's an edge. People who are raised in war their whole life. You got a little kid from the Sudan, 8 years old, trained up how to carry M16. He's not really afraid by the time he turns 30 years old and he's in the midst of a battlefield. You understand? It says, train up a child in their youth and they will not depart. So those of us that are parents, we have to train our children to understand that we're in the midst of a spiritual battle and that there's nothing to fear but the Most High himself. Go ahead.
Holding up his hands, praying for the whole body of the Jews. This done, in like manner, there appeared a man with gray hairs, and exceeding glorious.
Who was this guy? Read.
Who was of a wonderful and excellent majesty. Then Ananias answered, saying, This is a lover of the brethren, who prayeth much for the people,
Check that out.
for the holy city, to wit, Jeremiah, the prophet of the Most High.
So Jeremiah pulls up. Right? The people are already in the spirit, and they're saying, listen, you know what? They're going to come and attack us and fight against us on the Shabbat. But you know what? We're not going to trip. We're going to sit here and remember how the Most High delivered us aforetime. Then Jeremiah pulls up looking royal and ancient and, you know, wise. Go ahead.
Whereupon Jeremiah, holding forth his right hand, gave to Judas a sword of gold.
A golden sword. He gave Judas could you imagine what that sword looked like? Right? Just this powerful looking golden sword. He gives it to him, right? Go ahead. What are you gonna say?
Oh man, I think there's a movie like that actually.
Is it?
Exactly. Man, there's a movie like that. Though.
A golden sword?
Yeah, that's what I forgot.
Go ahead.
But what was it? 2 Maccabees 15:16. Take this holy sword, a gift from the Most High, with the which thou shalt wound the adversaries.
With which y'all shall what?
Wound the adversaries.
Check that out. And Christ came back in Matthew 10:36 and said, well, think not that I come to send peace upon earth. I come not to send peace, but a what?
Sword.
So there's nothing for us to fear. At the end of the day, the Most High wins the battle in Christ. Through Christ. Right? Go ahead.
Thus being well comforted by the words of Judas, which were very good, and able to stir them up to valor, and to encourage the hearts of the young men. They determined not to pitch camp, but courageously to set upon them, and manfully to try the matter by conflict. Because the city and the sanctuary and the temple were in danger.
Yeah.
For the care that they took for their wives and their children, their brethren, and folks, were in least account with them.
Now, where are those men at? What are they saying? The body, right? The temple was more important than their own families. They weren't even tripping on their wives and their children because they understood that the temple of the Most High came first. Jeez, man. Where are those guys in the earth? You know? That's us. That's you. That's why you go back into the Apocrypha saying he would give us these elders again. Meaning, you know, these type of men would come back, right, through in the night. You know, they're not going to actually come back, but the spirit of those men is going to reside in some warriors in the last days. They're going to be guys in the last days that's going to have the spirit of Judas. When I say Judas, I don't mean Judas who betrayed Christ, but Judas Maccabees. Going to have the spirit of Nehemiah. Going to have the spirit of Paul. Going to have the spirit of Jeremiah, Obadiah, Ezekiel, Elias, Elijah. Go ahead.
But the greatest and principal fear was for the holy temple. Also,
The greatest and principal fear was for the what?
holy temple.
The temple. Now, it says the temple is who? It's us. Your body's the temple. Neither say lo here or lo there. The kingdom Most High is within you. Now, it's all about keeping yourself pure and righteous above, you know, against all odds. Go ahead.
Also they that were in the city took not the least care, being troubled for the conflict abroad. And now, when all was looked, what should be the trial, and the enemies were already come near, and the army was set in array, the beasts conveniently placed, and the horsemen set in wings. Maccabeus, seeing the coming of the multitude, and the diverse preparations of armor, and the fierceness of beasts, and stretched out his hands toward heaven, and called upon the Lord that worketh wonders.
So Brother, when have you ever seen that in a movie like Braveheart or like King Arthur? Whenever the army clashes the fight, they just look at each other and they go, ah, and then they run, and then you can hear the swords clashing and sparking and all that, right? So before Judas and his army went running towards the Romans, before they ran towards the Romans, he lifted up his eyes towards the Most High and lift up his hands towards the Most High and said, what?
And called upon the Lord that worketh wonders.
He said, Ahaya ba Shem Yeshaya Baba Kushash and Makaloyam now. Please help us. Izar Nawa. Help us. Now I thought. And then they ran into battle. Go ahead.
Knowing that victory cometh not by arms,
It don't come by arm.
but even as it seemeth good to him,
Mm-hmm.
he giveth it to such are as worthy.
Check that out. That's why we got to be worthy people. A lot of fake stuff happening throughout Israel, man. Fake people smiling, talking, professing. What did he say? He said on the outside they're like white sepulchres. I mean, white stones. They're like white on the outside, but on the inside they're like graves, open sepulchres full of dead men's bones. Those who are worthy is the same way on the inside as they are on the outside. They real, You can see them coming from a mile away, like I was telling you about, your friend. You understand what I'm saying? Who will sit there and lie to your face. A person that can sit there and lie to your face, and you have no idea that they're lying to you. Like I was reading about, watching a documentary on this guy, this gangster, who killed his best friend, and then went to his funeral. Like, that's what the world, it's people like that even in the truth with that same spirit on them, yo. But the people that are worthy, they not like that, man. They going to be 100 the whole time. And the times that they do fall off like Peter, they're going to recognize it and they're going to repent. How? Sincerely. With a broken heart and a contrite what?
Spirit.
Read.
Verse 22.
Uh-huh.
Therefore, in his prayer, he said after this manner, Ahai, thou didst send thine angel in the time of Ezekias, king of Judah, and didst slay in the host of Sennacherib, 180 and 5,000.
That was in the book of Genesis. Go ahead.
Wherefore, now also, Ahia, O Lord of heaven, send a good angel before us, for a fear and a dread unto them.
Bring an angel to break these fools off. Go ahead.
And through the might of thine armor, let those be stricken with terror that come against thy holy people to blaspheme and to end us. Then Nekoar and they that were with him came forward with trumpets and songs. But Judas and his company encountered the enemies with invocation and prayer.
Wow.
So that fighting with their hands.
Fighting with their what?
Hands.
So they did actually fight with their hands. They just didn't have weapons. Go ahead.
And praying unto the Most High with their hearts.
Fighting with their hands while praying to the Most High. Boy, there's no new thing under the what?
Sun.
There may come a time where you find yourself fighting with your hands, protecting your family, and praying to the Most High at the same time. But you cannot let the spirit of fear affect you. You got to fight through that. Go ahead.
They slew no less than 30 and 5,000 men.
There you go. Read.
For through the appearance of the Most High, they were greatly cheered. Now when the battle was done, returning again with joy, they knew that Nekoar lay dead in his harness. When they made a great shout and noise, praising the Almighty in their own language.
In Hebrew, praising the Most High, Yada Ahaya, Barakatha Ahaya, Tawada Ahaya, Izar Nawa, right? Go ahead.
And Judas, who was ever the chief defender of the citizens, both in body and in mind.
And how?
Body and in mind.
Meaning he wasn't this out of shape slouch. His body was right, his spirit was right, his mind was right, prepared for war at all times. Minus the spirit of fear. Go ahead.
He continued his love toward his countrymen.
Also, too, that's a basic scripture that we didn't put in here, and that's, what is that, Timothy? Y'all look it up. You got a concordance. It says the Most High has not given us the spirit of fear. I believe it's Timothy 1:7. Go ahead.
And Judas, both in body and mind, who continued his love toward his countrymen all his life, commanded to strike off Nekoar's head and his hand with his shoulder and bring them to Jerusalem.
Now check that out. Look at the type of people that we were. This guy's talking smack about the Most High. So when we break him off, we're going to cut his head off. And what we see as far as the men of God do not resemble the men of God that we read about in the Bible anymore. And keep in mind that Christ did say, think not that I come to send peace upon. I come not to send peace on earth, but a sword. We better recognize the real God of all gods, Ahaya Shah and his son Yeshua, and how they are. Read.
So when he was there, he called them of his nation together and set the priests before the altar and sent for them that were of the tower and shewed them vile Nicor's head and the hand of that blasphemer, which with proud brags he stretched out against the holy temple of the Almighty. And when he had cut the tongue of the ungodly Nicanor, he commanded that they should give it by pieces unto the fowls.
Good grief. So they cut his head off, showed it to the people, so that way they would fear the Most High instead of the Romans. It's so funny that the Jews require a sign that you got to resort to that type of stuff. Then they went and cut his tongue out and cut it in pieces and gave it to the fowls for talking smack. These are men of the Most High. Read.
And hung up the reward of his madness before the temple.
I'm not saying to go out there and cut nobody's tongue out. I'm just saying.
Verse 34.
Read.
So every man prays toward the heaven, the glorious power, saying, blessed be he that hath kept his own place undefiled.
Check that out. And that's what we're doing here, man. No matter what we done been through, we kept ourselves undefiled. Go ahead.
He hate also
to some degree, you know. Meaning, you're not going to keep yourself undefiled in this world. Somebody once told me that the world is like a huge toilet bowl and everybody's full of crap, right? But the word, Ephesians 5:26 said that the word is water. And you wash yourself constantly, washing off the evil that you have to constantly be exposed to on a daily basis. And not only do you read the word, but you share the word and you speak the word to one another in your community. Because it said, the word that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life. So that's why in our house, we try to constantly speak about the Most High. And not just pulling scriptures, but somebody will come in with a story about something that happened during their day and they relate that to the scriptures. Because the words that I speak unto you are spirit and they are life. That's another way to bring confidence in Christ in your household. And what? Have the spirit of fear dissipate. Go ahead.
Verse 35. He hanged also Nicanor's head upon the tower, an evident and manifest sign unto all of the help of the Most High. And they ordained all with a common decree, and in no case to let that day pass without solemnity, but to celebrate the 30th day of the 12th month, which in the Syrian tongue is called Adar, the day before Mardocheus Day.
You know what? I'm going to have to look that up. I'm just reading this. I've read it, but I didn't think to look up what feast day that is. You know, so we'll get back at that later. It said, what day is it? It
says to celebrate the 30th day of the 12th. I think that's the feast dedication.
So there's homework for you guys, right? So we're going to get on that too. That's also something, you see something on the video that didn't get explained properly, that's an opportunity for you to go in there and crack your own books open. Go ahead.
Verse 37. Thus went it with Nicanor, and from that time forth the Hebrews have the city in their power, and he will make, and here will I make an end. And if I have done well, as it is fitting the story, it is that which I desire. But if slandered meanly, it is that which I could obtain unto. For as it is hurtful to drink wine or water alone, as wine mingled with water is pleasant, and delighteth the taste, even so speech finely framed delighteth the ears of them that read the story. And here shall be an end.
Nice. That's a beautiful story. Right? And that's what he's saying. This history, our history is rich. So with that, we're enjoying the very first night of the Feast of Tabernacles according to the Enoch calendar that you can reference from the book of Enoch. So on the first night and the last night is Shabbat, which means you do not want to have your own pleasure, which includes intercourse or anything like that. You want to spend this time with family, with friends, fellowshipping in the Word. Right now, what we're going to do is we're going to go outside and we're going to get in our tents and camp out and hang out and cook some beef hot dogs, and, you know, and things of that nature, and just talk, get some marshmallows over the fire, and celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. So with that, we're going to say shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom.